2001.
And what are your current duties?
First shift supervisor for Corrections Division and also the K-9 Division.
Okay, what is the Corrections Division?
That would be taking care of the inmates in the jail. Pretty much it.
Okay, and how long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that for about approximately 14 years.
Okay. And between September 13th and October 17th of 2016, were you working in the jail?
Yes.
And were you approached by Shawn Grate?
I was.
And what did Mr. Grate want?
He had some questions about contacting Detective Major and also questions about how we do things within the jail.
Okay. Reference his questions about Detective Major. What did he want?
Basically that he would like to speak to her.
Okay. And was that contact initiated by you or by him?
That was by him.
And then what would you do?
I would either text it to Detective Major or I'd make a phone call. And I don't remember which I did at that point because this happens a lot with other inmates as well. So it's either, if I'm real busy, I'll send a text to the detectives, or if I'm not real busy, I'll make the phone call directly to them.
Okay. And approximately how many times were these requests made of you by Mr. Grate?
Personally, to me, maybe once or twice. Other times it was through my officers. They were instructed to contact me, and I would contact the people they want to talk to.
Okay. And were there multiple such requests from Mr. Grate?
I believe there was around 4 or 5 probably total.
In that time period?
Right.
Okay. And each time you would contact Detective Major?
Yes.
Thank you, Sergeant. Nothing further.
Cross.
No questions to this witness, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Freeland. You're excused. Next witness.
Michael Hammond, Hammond.
Agent Hammond, how are you employed?
I'm a special agent with the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation.
Sometimes referred to as BCI.
Yes, sir.
Are you a duly sworn peace officer in the state of Ohio?
I am.
How long have you been a peace officer in Ohio?
About 23 years now.
How many of those years have you been a special agent with BCI?
10.
Where'd you work before going to BCI?
I worked for the Lima Police Department for 15 years.
Okay. And what kind of duties do you have as a special agent for BCI?
I'm assigned to the crime scene unit. My primary function at the office is to assist city, local, county, and state agencies with crime scene investigations.
So something happens in the region that you are assigned to, and they call in, and then Agent Hammond responds to assist with the collection of evidence.
Correct.
Okay. What region are you assigned to?
I'm assigned to Northwest Ohio. There's 22 counties that border Indiana and Michigan along the lake.
Okay. So you do a lot of driving then for your jobs after this?
A lot of driving.
Okay. Well, Agent Hammond, I'm going to bring to your attention September 13th, 2016. Were you working at BCI at that time?
I was.
Did you have the occasion to respond to Ashland, Ohio on that date?
I did.
Okay. And was that to assist with the collection of evidence?
Yes.
Did you speak with a detective for the Ashland Police Division?
I did.
Do you recall who that was?
I believe it was Kim Magers.
Okay. And did she give you kind of a primer as to what they were looking for you to do in this case?
She did.
Okay. And what did you do reference the collection of evidence in this case?
I assisted Detective Magers. She had spoken with suspect Shawn Grate. She had obtained consent to collect some samples from him, and I assisted her by swabbing Mr. Grate's fingers on his right and left hands and doing a swab of his penis to collect possible biological fluids and touch DNA evidence.
And did you collect any other DNA from the defendant?
Yes. He had indicated that there was a scratch on his left index finger knuckle. He indicated to me that he had punched one of the ladies during one of the incidents. So we also swabbed that area of his hand.
Did you also get a DNA standard from Mr. Grate?
I did.
Okay. So the individual in question, what was his name?
Shawn Grate.
Okay. Generally speaking, how do you collect? Let's talk about the you mentioned from the hands and then from his penis DNA from those areas. How do you do that?
We take a sterile swab and we moisten it with 1 drop of sterile water, and then we use that swab to collect the possible biological fluids in the touch DNA from the finger bed area of the fingernail and then underneath the nail. I use 1 swab to collect the DNA, the touch DNA from these 3 fingers on the right hand, and then I use a separate swab to do the right hand, and then we use 1 swab to collect potential evidence from the penis.
And why did you do that?
Why do we separate it?
No, why collect DNA samples from the hands and from his penis?
A lot of times what happens during a sexual assault or any sexual encounters, there's an exchange of body fluids, there's an exchange of skin cells. So, for instance, if you and I were at a sporting event and our team scores a touchdown or a home run or whatever, and we give each other a high five, there's a slight exchange of skin cells between our hands. Well, you can imagine a sexual encounter where someone's using their hands or their fingers during this sexual encounter. There's an exchange of skin cells. The folds of your skin, and particularly the penis of a man, will collect and retain biological fluids and skin cells from that partner or that person.
So you're swabbing these areas you've previously discussed to determine if someone else's DNA is present. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Anytime that a victim and a suspect come together at a particular location, there should be evidence, and that's what we're trying to collect.
Now, Agent Hammond, have you received training in the collection of these kinds of biological pieces of evidence?
I have.
Could you explain that to us, please?
We go through a really rigorous training process where we attend classes at the Ohio Peace Officers Training Academy. We, as agents, were also asked, and we normally do receive certifications through the International Association for Identification and Crime Scene Investigation, and we do an awful lot of training.
And do you have continuing training where you, throughout your employment at BCI, will continue to receive instruction in the newest ways to do these things?
Yes.
Okay. Now, based on your training in the collection of biological evidence and your experience as a special agent for BCI, do you expect or do you find DNA evidence every time there has been a contact between 2 people, physical contact?
Every time? No.
Okay. So, he's wearing for the record?
Mr. Grate is the gentleman sitting in the middle of that table with the white shirt, the tie, and the eyeglasses.
Thank you. Your Honor, may the record reflect the witness's in-court identification of Shawn Grate.
The record will so reflect.
Thank you. Defense counsel states it's at 262. Agent Hammond, handing has been marked for identification purposes as States Exhibit 262. Would you tell us what that is, please?
This is a brown paper bag that I used to package some evidence, and it says that this is the known standard from Shawn Grate. It has his social security number and date of birth, and then his place of birth documented on the packaging, and it says DNA standard. It was collected at the Ashland Police Department. It was collected by me and in the presence of Special Agent Soroka. And then it has my tape seal on the opening and then my initials and the date.
And why do you have your initials and the date on the seal here?
It just ensures that the package hasn't been opened or altered or damaged.
Okay. There's also a red sticker at the bottom. Do you recognize that?
This is our lab number. This is lab number 16-310871. Anytime that one of our forensic scientists does anything with these standards, obviously when we take it to the lab, it's going to be opened and then examined and then put through a series of tests. So the scientist will open the bag in another area away from my original seal. They'll take the item out, and then what they'll do is they'll reseal it and then put their initials over top of that seal.
And so down here we see another piece of tape and someone else's initials and a date. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this State's Exhibit 262 is the standard that you got from Mr. Grate. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And Your Honor, for the record, I would note there's been a stipulation as to the chain of custody on State's Exhibit 262.
So noted.
Agent Hammond, you indicated that Mr. Grate had provided consent to the taking of a DNA standard in this case. Was that done in writing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you have that with you?
I do.
Do you have a copy or do you have the original?
I have the original.
Could I have that, please?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to mark that as State's Exhibit 389. I'm going to show that to the defense counsel. Agent Hammond, we've had copies of this, but you have the original. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, I'm going to hand you back State's Exhibit 389. There's some language here indicating the consent of a person named Shawn Grate to providing elimination standards. Is that the DNA standard you mentioned?
Correct.
Can either confirm or eliminate someone as being a source of DNA from somewhere else,
That's correct.
as well as the penile swabs.
Yes, sir.
And there's a signature right here that says signed. Whose signature is that?
That's Mr. Grate's.
Okay. There's also witness signatures. The second signature, whose signature is that?
That is mine.
Okay. Indicating that you witnessed Mr. Grate providing his consent and signing this form?
Yes, sir.
All right. And is this form, it's got the BCI logo up top, the Attorney General logo on the other side. Is this kept in the ordinary course of business of BCI?
It is.
And you kept this in your records for just such an occasion, is that correct?
We normally scan it into a recording system as the original, and then I always retain that copy in my files.
Okay. Now, Agent Hammond, in addition to collecting these potential biological evidence, did you do anything else with?
And it looks like it's, there's one a little higher, it looks like it's healing, and then there's one that looks a little fresher. You can actually see where the skin has been taken away from that area of the knuckle, a little lower.
Agent Hammond, you'd mentioned previously that one of the swabs you did was of the knuckle area in response to something Mr. Grate said. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What was that?
He told me that he had punched one of the victims in the house, and that he had thought that he had hit his knuckle on her tooth.
Okay. And did Mr. Grate attribute the injury that we're observing in State's Exhibit 260 to that?
Yes.
Okay. Is State's Exhibit 260 a fair and accurate depiction of what it's purporting to depict?
It is.
And State's Exhibit 261.
This is a photograph of Mr. Grate's back. It was taken on the same date there in the interview room.
And is that photograph a fair and accurate depiction of Mr. Grate from behind with his shirt off?
It is.
from that date?
It is.
Okay. Thank you, Agent Hammond. Thank you, Judge.
Cross-examine.
Thank you, Judge. Agent Hammond, on September 13th of 2016, you indicated that you had talked with Kim Majors at the Ashland Police Department.
I did, sir.
Was that by phone, or did you actually go to the police department then?
I did. I went to the police department. I was initially called to the Ashland Police Department by my supervisor, Ed Lula. And when I arrived at the police department, I spoke with Detective Majors.
Okay, and what time of day was that on September 13th of 2016 when you met with Detective Majors at the Ashland Police Department?
I'd have to look at my report to be accurate, completely accurate, but I believe it was about 3:30 in the afternoon.
2:30?
3:30, sir.
3:30? The DNA samples, or the swabs, I should say, or samples that you obtained from Mr. Grate, those are eventually turned over to a lab technician or DNA analyst.
Yes, sir.
Right, and were those swabs turned into BCI?
I believe so. I initially turned those swabs and those standards.
Your Honor, there's a stipulation to change.
Yes, counsel want to approach?
In response to,
I wasn't talking about the change, but was asking who he turned over.
you might get the answer.
What?
Counsel want to approach? Let's talk about this stuff up here.
Thank you. Would you tell us your name, please?
Lisa Riley.
And how are you employed?
I work at University Hospital Samaritan Medical Center.
And how long have you worked there?
18 years.
And what are your current duties?
I'm a registered nurse.
And what's it take to be a registered nurse?
I went through the associate degree program at Stark State College.
Okay. And then is there an additional training?
I keep active on CEUs every year, and I also continue my education.
And to be a registered nurse, you're registered with whom?
The state of Ohio.
And how long have you been so registered?
A registered nurse I've been for 6 years.
Defense counsel states exhibits 244 and 245. You hand you what we've marked for purposes of identification as states exhibit 244. Do you recognize that document?
Yes, this is my curriculum vitae.
And what is a curriculum vitae?
It basically entails my education, my work history, and my education.
Okay. And would you detail your education for us?
Yes. Do you want my college education or all of my education and training?
Where'd you go to college?
I went, I've kind of had many things going on. I went in 2001 to 2002, I went through the Ohio Peace Officer Training Academy at North Central State College. A SANE nurse is a sexual assault nurse examiner. And I'm a safe nurse through Samaritan. Our policies are different, so I do part of the exam, and then I call a medical personnel to come in with me, a medical provider. He will come in, or she, and do the genitalia exam.
Okay. And so the difference between a safe nurse and a SANE nurse is the SANE nurse would also do the genitalia exam?
The SANE nurse does the genitalia exam in the SANE.
And then
Correct.
in a safe protocol, you would have a doctor or a physician's assistant
Perform the... Yes.
Okay. And what is available at UH Samaritan?
The SAFE
Safe.
program.
Okay. When a victim presents, or somebody saying that they're a victim presents to the emergency department, what is the primary goal of you as the healthcare provider?
When they present, we take them directly to a room for their, to get them away from the general public. We make it private for them.
Okay. But what overall, what's the purpose?
As a safe nurse,
Yeah, when
to
this person comes in.
collect a medical history for trauma and injuries.
Are you trying to care for the patient?
Correct.
Okay. Is it more important to care for the patient or collect evidence?
The patient.
Okay. There are various, releases as part of the SAFE protocol, is there not?
Yes.
That would allow the information that you're taking, medical records and whatnot, to be released to other folks.
Yes.
And those aren't usually releases that would be present in other people's treatment. If somebody was there for just, they fell off a ladder or something.
Correct.
Right? If a patient refused to sign one of those releases saying that they're there for treatment but they don't wish to disseminate any of their medical records, would you still give that level of care?
Yes.
Okay, so you don't kick them out because they don't want anybody to know why they're there.
No.
Okay. Now, what are the stages of a SAFE examination?
The stages, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean by
What's the
that.
protocol?
The protocol, like our hospital protocol, we bring them in, we do a head-to-toe assessment. We're checking for injuries, obtaining a medical history, and then we also collect evidence.
Okay. When a person presents at the emergency room, you indicated you're also a triage nurse.
Correct.
What does that mean?
A triage nurse is the first nurse to see a patient. They assess the injury, the complaint, as what the reason why they're there, and decide the necessity of who should go where or what kind of treatment.
And were you working on September 13th, 2016?
Yes, I was.
And did an individual by the name of Lori Svillick present at the emergency department?
Yes, she did.
And did she also undergo this triage process?
She did, but it's different when a sexual assault victim comes in. They skip that and we take them directly to a room.
Okay. And what would ordinarily occur in a triage protocol occurs in the SAFE protocol?
Correct.
All right. Show defense counsel states exhibit 245. Show you states exhibit 245. Can you tell us what that packet, open the packet and tell us what that is?
This is the medical record of Lori, her visit on September the 13th.
Okay. And for the record, Your Honor, 245 is a certified copy of those medical records.
Thank you.
What time did Lori Svillick present to the emergency department?
May I refer to my...
Please do.
She presented at 10:20 a.m.
Okay. And where did she come from?
She came with Cindy Hudnut, the Safe Haven advocate. She came from the police department.
And is it your understanding that at the time she presented to you for treatment, that she had already been interviewed by law enforcement?
I don't know for sure. I don't know what they did with her before she came to me.
Okay, but she came by way of the police department.
Correct.
And really, for your purposes, does it matter what happened before?
Not at the police department, no.
Okay. Does it matter what happened to her at the time she was victimized?
Yes, it does.
Why does that matter to you as a registered nurse?
Because I need to see what's wrong, whether, what injuries she has, what she's presenting with, how to treat her properly.
And when you saw her initially, what was her demeanor?
She was tearful. She was very nervous, just frightened.
And did she remain that way throughout the exam?
I did get her to talk a little bit, but she was rocking back and forth during the exam. She was terrified.
Were you able to complete an examination?
Yes, I was.
When you begin your examination, what is the first order of business?
I explain what I'm going to do. I let her know the details and let her know that it's going to be a long day.
Okay. Approximately how long does the examination take?
Anywhere from 4 to 8 hours or longer.
Okay. Once you explain to her, I guess, the procedure and what you're going to do, what do you do next?
I get a consent.
Okay. And that consent is for what?
I obtain a consent to do an actual exam. We call it a SAG kit. It's the rape kit.
Okay.
I get consent for that, and I also get consent for treatment and for release of information.
Okay, so you do all of that up front.
Yeah.
If the patient denies consent to a, I guess, rape kit, as we'll call it, do you continue to treat the patient?
Correct. Yes, we do.
Okay. You just wouldn't do the rape kit?
No.
And consent to treat, that's a standard hospital form?
Yes.
And that would be asked of anyone
Yes.
that was seeking treatment, correct?
Correct.
And the third is the consent we kind of touched upon earlier, I guess for a wider dissemination of the medical records to law enforcement, is that correct?
Correct.
And if a patient denied consent and didn't want to sign that form, would you continue to treat the patient?
Yes.
And did Lori Sfillick sign all of those consent forms?
Yes, she did.
Okay, and then what happened?
I carried on with my exam. I remember that morning I was the charge nurse, so it did take me a little longer to get into this patient because I had to find someone to replace me, but I kept her informed on what was going on. She had Cindy Hudnut with her, and so I had to step in, explain everything, come back a couple times, and you'll notice that in my documentation.
Okay. Now, you said Cindy Hudnut is an advocate from Safe Haven?
Yes, she is.
What is Safe Haven?
Safe Haven is it's a domestic violence shelter program that offers help to victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and they try to help those women. They provide a safe place for them. They do a lot for our community.
Okay. Is it important for somebody that's been victimized or a victim of sexual assault to not be alone initially?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And they kind of provide that service there, even at the hospital?
Yes, they do.
Okay. So once the consent forms are signed and you figure out who's going to cover your other duties, what do you do?
Then I go in and I start the actual, I go in and do a head-to-toe assessment.
Okay? And you did so in this case?
Yes.
And what did you find?
I found numerous injuries, bruising.
And do you detail those findings anywhere within the records?
Yes, I do.
Okay, if you would locate that particular record within Exhibit 245. You got it?
Yes.
So it's documented, those injuries that you saw are documented within State's Exhibit 245?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Let me wait for that noise to clear so everybody can hear. All right, before we get there, let me back up for a second. Do you take a history from the patient?
Yes, I do.
Do you do that before or after the head-to-toe assessment?
Before.
Okay. So the first order of business is to find out what the patient is complaining of, correct?
Yes.
And why do you ask that?
It helps me to look for specific areas that the victim explains she's had injury, so that I know what to treat.
Okay. And you did so in this case?
Yes, I did.
And what history as to the injuries were you given?
I was given the entire events that happened to Lori from Sunday evening to Tuesday morning.
Okay. Where did she indicate she was injured?
Numerous places. Her head was one. She had sexual assault, so she had vaginal pain, and she had numerous bruises on her extremities, her arms, legs.
Okay. Did she tell you how those got there?
Yes, she did.
What did she say?
She said she was assaulted by Shawn Grate.
Okay. But let's start here with the head pain.
Okay,
How did that happen?
She was struck in the head.
Okay. Does it make a difference to you if she's struck with a hand, a fist, or an object?
Yes.
Okay. So what did she say about the mechanism of that injury?
She said that she was struck in the head with a fist.
Okay. And in just one place or multiple places?
Multiple.
And were you able to visualize those injuries?
Yes.
Okay. Did she have other pain outside of her head?
Yes, she did.
Where?
She had vaginal pain.
Okay. And what did she report regarding vaginal pain?
That she was raped.
Okay. Now, did she indicate what the mechanism of that injury was?
As she did.
And what was that?
There were several. Penis, fingers. That's...
Okay. So she indicated that injury had occurred to her vaginal area from penis and fingers.
Yes.
Okay. Now, sexual assault isn't limited to vaginal intercourse, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay. Did she report to you, for purposes of completing your examination, sexual assault in other orifices?
Yes, she did.
What are those?
She had anal penetration.
Okay. By what?
penis and fingers also.
Okay?
And she also had oral penetration,
By what?
penis and fingers.
Okay. And it makes a difference what an individual is assaulted with, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You would agree with me that things aren't supposed to, the anus isn't set up to accept things, correct?
It is not.
All right. So the size matters when somebody's assaulted in that fashion, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a high potential of injury in that kind of conduct?
Yes, there can be.
Okay. And did she have injury to her anus?
I'd have to look at my documentation. I do not recall.
Yeah. All right. Did she have, outside of the sexual assault, you'd said she had injury from a physical assault to her head. Did she also report to you being physically assaulted in other parts of the body?
Yes, she did.
Okay, what were those areas?
She had, do you want me to explain?
Well, I guess just give me the areas, and then we'll go back and cover.
Okay, as
specifically.
far as her head, she had a hematoma to the left side of her scalp. It was around, right around this area.
And by hematoma, you mean
It's
what
like
we
a
call
collection of blood under the skin.
like a goose egg?
Correct.
Okay. What else?
She had bruising noted to her lip, upper and lower.
Okay.
Let me get her face. I'm just going to start at the top. She had a 1 centimeter scratch on the left side of her neck. And then below that was another centimeter scratch. And she had purple bruising. I took photos of these that on the left side of her neck.
Okay, where else?
She had bruising on her arm, her left arm. She had abrasions on her left finger, her thumb, I'm sorry. She had multiple bruises on both of her legs, her ankle.
All right. And did she report to you how all of these occurred?
Yes, she did.
What was that?
As far as the scalp, she was punched in the face, or the scalp, I'm sorry, she was what she called, I remember saying, she was co-cocked is what she said, and I asked her to clarify that, and she said that he hit her in the head with his fist. He also had punched her in the mouth. She was choked. He bit her finger. She had described having many altercations as physical, like trying to get away from him.
Let me go back for a second. Getting cold cocked in the head, does that cause you concern as a treatment provider?
Yes. I work directly with my medical provider, and when I discovered that, I talked to my medical provider. Because of the nature, we did get a CAT scan of her head.
Okay. So that leads to further treatment?
It does.
All right. And was the CAT scan clear?
It was.
Okay. But it's a concern?
It is.
All right. And choking. As a medical provider, is choking a concern?
Yes, it is.
Is that a dangerous activity?
Very dangerous.
How is it dangerous?
Lethal. You could die from it.
Can it also cause lasting injury?
Yes, it can.
And is there any specific follow-up care that you were able to provide reference choking?
Yes, we have her, we have victims. As far as Lori goes, we had her follow up with a family physician right away. She was also under direct care of, not care, but she went somewhere where she was not alone.
Okay. Do the effects of that sometimes come on in a delayed manner?
It can
Okay, so that could cause you problems
later on,
days later.
days later.
You said she had an abrasion to her thumb,
Yes.
and that got there how?
She said that sorry. He would gag her with his finger to make her better at oral sex so that she would be able to perform oral sex better. Or you guys know what oral sex is, where he was trying to insert his penis in her throat. She was not good at it from his standards, so he was trying to make her better at it, so he would do that.
And in fact, she exhibits injury to one side of her mouth, does she not?
Yes.
Okay, and not the other.
Yes.
Were you present for a vaginal examination?
Yes, I was.
And were you able through that examination to visualize internally
Yes, I
inside her
did.
vagina?
I worked directly with the medical provider, and I was able to.
And did she have internal injury to her vagina?
Yes, she did.
What did that consist of?
She had abrasions on the the vaginal opening on the inside. When we go to insert the speculum, you can open up the speculum a little bit and you see the walls of the vagina. And on both sides, there were abrasions to both sides.
And unlike the anal opening, the vagina is designed to accept objects,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. So in the ordinary course of things, would you expect to find internal injury to the vagina from the insertion of some object?
No, I wouldn't. May I demonstrate?
Certainly.
Okay. The opening, this is like the hymen, the opening of the vagina. So it's a collar tissue that is very estrogenized. So it's allowed for birth, penile penetration, and then it's very elastic, so it's shaped, and you can see as it goes back and forth. That's how the vagina works.
Okay. So ordinarily, you wouldn't anticipate seeing injury.
No.
What does injury to the, past that opening indicate to you as a medical professional?
There was trauma. blunt trauma.
Now, ordinarily, would you take a blood and urine specimen from a victim as part of a safe exam?
Not always.
Okay, what triggers that?
When I do my medical history, I will ask them. I will see if they were given any kind of sedation, anything, just alcohol, whether it's anything. In Lori's case, I did have to perform a drug facilitated kit.
And why was that?
She reported that Mr. Grate gave her pills to relax her. She was too uptight.
Okay. And so that triggered some sort of urine screen.
Yes, and blood work.
And did that come back negative for any ill effects?
I do not get the results of those. I hand it to law enforcement, and then
Okay. Now, you said that when Lori presented to you that she was rocking, crying, appeared frightened.
yes, very.
How was her hygiene?
Poor. She had very strong body odor. It was very strong. I remember it. When I opened the door, I could just smell the odor.
And it might be different for different individuals as far as body odor goes, correct?
Yes,
But did the odor, I think you told us that she had been there, she said, since Sunday?
correct.
And what day of the week was this that you were seeing her?
Tuesday.
Okay, so her condition as far as hygiene was concerned,
Yes.
did that appear to you to be consistent with that history of having been held since Sunday?
Yes.
Now, as far as treatment is concerned with reference sexual assault, there is always the possibility of pregnancy, correct?
Correct.
And did you discuss that and the treatment side of that potential with Lori?
Yes, I did.
And what was the outcome of that?
It's a protocol that during this exam we give, first we have to do a pregnancy test to make sure that the victim's not already pregnant. And if it comes back negative, we give a pill it's called Plan B. It's to stop the pregnancy from happening. It doesn't abort a baby that's there.
Okay. But it would block
It would block
the sperm
from reaching the egg.
from reaching an egg.
Yes.
Okay. And was there consent from Lori to such a treatment?
Yes.
Was she concerned about the the possibility?
Yes, she was.
How concerned was she?
She had made statements to me that she was scared that he could have gotten her pregnant, and she had made statements that she didn't know if he ejaculated into her.
Okay. You also, as part of your examination, ask patients whether or not they vomited.
Yes.
What is the purpose of asking such a question?
Sometimes, for various reasons. One can be if, sorry, I'm nervous. If they were given anything that made them vomit or just like a standard question.
Okay, but it could mean that there was some chemical given to them?
Correct, that made them nauseated.
Isn't it true that vomiting could also be a side effect of a head injury?
It could, yes.
Or it could just be some viral or
Or stress.
biological process that they've got an illness or there's something going on there.
Yes.
Okay. And did you ask Lori such a question?
Why she vomited?
Did she?
Yes.
Okay. And once somebody indicates that they have, do you go further in your
Yes.
treatment, ask them what they think caused that?
Yes.
And what, in her opinion, caused that?
She gagged on his penis. And she also had gagged on his fingers.
And that caused her to vomit.
Yes.
So she indicated to you she had done that multiple times.
Yes.
Now, as part of this, did you also give, at the conclusion of the medical portion of your exam, does the patient, and specifically Lori, was she kept at the hospital for a period of time?
I kept her there for a little while myself. Like after my exam, I let her shower and we kept her there for a little bit.
And what's the purpose of that?
I like to monitor them for a little while for a few reasons to see how they're doing, and also because she had injuries.
Okay. You indicated you let her shower.
Yes.
Did she have a concern, I guess, with respect to showering?
She was very tearful, and she was very tearful that he had shaven a heart in her pubic hair.
Did you notice that as part of your examination?
Yes.
And so what'd you do as a result of being provided that information?
I gave her a razor just to get rid of it.
Okay. And did she do so?
Yes.
Now, is there also medication prescribed?
Yes.
Who does the prescribing?
The medical provider.
Okay. I believe within the medical records, it's also noted that there was fluid present in the vagina.
Yes.
I guess you saw this?
Yes, I did.
What did that look like?
It was a brownish fluid. When you're looking into, when you have the victim up, they have their legs kind of spread open, and you're looking back, and with the speculum inside of the vagina, you can see the cervix, and you can see like a little area, there was some brown fluid.
Is that supposed to be there?
No.
Okay. What is that indicative of?
Generally, with fluid, brown fluid can indicate old, like blood.
Okay. So would that be consistent then with the abrasions that you saw?
Yes, it would.
She had internally? All right, the show states 246, 247, 248, 47, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, and 56. Your Honor, if we may publish as we go.
Any objection?
No objection, Judge.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. Keep that out. Okay.
If you're looking at State's Exhibit 246. Who is that?
This is Lori.
Is that as she appeared the morning of September 13th in your emergency department?
Other than the gown that we changed her into, yes.
Okay. Now, you collected her clothing.
Yes, I did.
We'll do that in a minute. But, so she's in a hospital gown here.
Yes.
What is the purpose of the, looks like a tongue depressor with the information?
It just accurately just has her information. It's got her date of birth, her name, so that we know we have the right person. There's no questioning.
Okay. And is there injury, visible injury to her here?
Yes, there is.
Would you point it out?
Do I- marks, and you can also see bruising.
Okay, and approximately where is the bruising?
On the left side of the neck, like, I don't have a point, but like,
I guess
hold, do you want me to hold this up to
just the left.
this area?
Okay, kind of that depressed area there is the bruise.
Yes.
Now, bruises darken over time, yes?
Correct.
Okay. So sometimes the bruising looks slight, I guess, to you when you first see a patient in your fresh ones.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
The scratch there that's below, just below the area of bruising you've indicated in the exhibit, did she say what that's from?
She had said that he had choked her. I don't know if it was from a fingernail or,
Okay.
I don't know.
But if somebody's choked, they may or may not exhibit injury to the neck,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
And in this case, there is an injury.
Yes.
Is that consistent with the history that she was giving you?
Yes.
Show you State's Exhibit 248. And what injury is documented in that?
This is bruising to her left arm.
Okay, and is that sort of in the center of the picture there?
Yes, it is.
So there's an area now that we've zoomed in, near the top of what we're seeing is sort of a large circular bruise.
Correct.
And you saw that and documented that.
Yes.
And then there's, appears to be some circular
There's,
marks.
it's a
underneath.
little difficult to see, but on this picture, you can see
No, I
three.
have a laser pointer if you wish to use
One,
it.
two, sometimes these TVs eat them up.
You can try it, see if it works. Yeah, it does. It just,
This is the larger bruise, and as you can see, it's a little difficult with angles of the camera, different things to get really good pictures, but you can see three marks right here.
Okay, one appears to be sort of darkening up and the other two are red,
Yes,
correct?
yes.
What does that tell you as a medical professional?
The pigment of the skin is different for everyone, but it's different stages of healing.
What do we mean when we say pinpoint bruising?
Pinpoint bruising, I'm not sure what you, like,
I guess those circles there that are on her,
yes,
Are they roughly the size of somebody's fingertip?
Yes.
Show you State's Exhibit 249. And what does that document?
This is Lori's left knee with bruising.
Okay, and is that just to the right of the kneecap?
Correct.
Sort of that darkened area?
Yes.
All right. And then is there also area of bruising below the knee
Yes.
that's visible here? Sort of the center lower quarter of that picture?
Yes.
Okay. Show you State's 250. Is there bruising within this photograph?
It's very difficult to see, but there is abrasions on her left inner ankle.
The bruise that's on her, is there a bruise there on her shin?
There's yes, on the
Area of discoloration there to the right?
Yes.
Bruises are hard to photograph, are they not?
Yes, they're very difficult.
Okay. I take it these, as you visualized them on the morning of September 13, were apparent to you?
Very. I was able to measure them, and
You didn't have to hunt to find them?
no, not at all.
See the 251? Judge, if we could blacken this, I've got to switch folders.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, looking at 251, are there any injuries within this photograph?
Yes, there is. This
Where's-
is a better picture of the ankle injuries. It's the left inner is bruised, and you can also kind of see like an abrasion.
That area there?
Correct.
Okay, as we blow up that on the screen. Exhibit 252. Is there injury documented within this photograph?
Yes, there is.
Where's that?
It is on like the below the right knee, midway down. There's bruising.
The yellowed area there on the right
Correct.
of the leg below the kneecap area? In there?
Yeah.
Should we blow it up?
This is bruising on the same leg. The other picture showed a little bit better of the upper bruise, but this is down in the mid area. Your photos, this one's not as good as that.
Down a little bit there, area of discoloration sort of in the center, and then of the photo now as it's blown up and moved to the left as we look at it. Correct?
Correct.
Now, we've looked at photographs of it looks like both lower legs have experienced some sort of bruising, cuts and abrasions and what have you.
Correct.
Was there a history provided to you that would be consistent with injury to the lower leg?
Yes.
What's that?
She was tied up.
Okay. If you were going to consent to being tied up, would you expect to take injury there?
No.
So what does that tell you?
She was being held against her will.
See the 254? Does that document any injury?
Yes, it does.
To where?
Her thumb, left thumb.
Okay, and that view is of the top of the thumb?
Correct.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 255. What is that a view of?
Her thumb also.
From the other
Right.
side. And is that consistent with any history provided by the victim?
Yes, she said that he bit her.
Bit her thumb.
Yes.
Now, as part of a course of treatment at the hospital, did you also provide Lori with something to eat and drink?
Yes, I did.
Why?
Because there's a lot of medications you have to give them, which can cause nausea, upset stomach, and you don't want to give them. Not to mention she's been held captive.
Did she report when the last time she ate was?
I would have to look at my record to be certain. Sorry, I can't find it in my documentation. I have here that she had food or drink.
I can draw your attention to the form that's called ED record. The first form, first page under appetite.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Okay, her last meal was on Sunday,
And again, this was what day?
Tuesday. And breast. The medical provider came in and we swabbed vaginal areas anally.
Okay. And then what do you do with all of these swabs?
We let them dry. There's a specific time that you have to allow them to dry, and I stay with them the entire time, and then we package everything up, seal it, and give it to law enforcement.
And is that why it's referred to as a kit?
Correct.
Are all of the swabs and everything you need contained within the kit?
Yes, it is.
Show the Defense Counsel States Exhibit 257. show you what we marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 257. What is that?
This is the rape kit.
Okay. When you first begin your examination, what is inside this box?
The very first part is like the consent.
Okay. Show 256 to council. Show you states Exhibit 256. It's a 2-page document. And if you would refer to the second page. What is that?
This is a drug-facilitated sexual assault release.
Okay. So is that part of the consent process?
Yes. Well, it's, yes.
Yeah. And then the first page is chain of custody.
Correct.
So you have to fill out the consent that you discussed. Fill that out, and then what? What else is in here?
As you have all the envelopes, the Q-tips that we were discussing that for the actual kit, it has everything you need in it.
Okay. So you, in essence, just take out one of the Q-tips out of the sleeve, do the collection in the manner that you described, and then once dry, put it back in, seal it, put it back in the box,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Okay, so it's all self-contained.
Yes.
And then, once it's sealed, what information is filled out here on the front of the box?
Chain of custody, who sealed it, which was me.
Okay. And then chain of custody means what?
And it means who received it next, who, and therefore after that. It's just,
Okay, so you sealed the box,
yes,
and in fact, you sealed Exhibit 257
yes,
after you collected all of the swabs, with the exception of the medical provider swab and the vaginal swab?
the medical provider swabs go in there also, because I'm right there with him during the entire,
Okay, so you see those, and those go in here?
yes.
All right, and then this box went where?
Stayed with me until after it was sealed. I call law enforcement, and it looks like Officer Eggeman.
Okay, and when did Officer Eggman take custody of that?
9/13/16 at 23:49.
Okay, and so you gave that to Officer Eggman?
Yes,
And in fact, that is also documented within Exhibit 256, is that correct?
correct.
Okay. Now, the front of 257 also indicates there's some items of clothing collected.
Yes.
Whose clothing was collected?
Lori's clothing?
And so at some point, does she get some new clothes so she can leave the hospital?
Yes, we provide her with clothes.
Okay. And that's part of this examination protocol?
Yes, it is.
You indicated to us that Lori arrived at 10:20 a.m.
Correct.
What time was she discharged?
May I look?
Yep.
She left at 19:25, which is 7:25 p.m.
So 10:20 to 7:25 p.m.
Correct.
All right. So you said 48 hours. You weren't kidding.
No, not at all.
All right. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Cross-examine.
I have no questions to this witness. Judge, thank you.
Thank you. You're excused, ma'am. now 10:45 a.m. on the court's clock, and we're going to take our morning recess at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, please be sure not to form any opinions, draw any conclusions yet. Don't discuss this case with one another. Don't let anybody discuss it with you. Don't observe any media. We'll be in recess for about 10-15 minutes.